Okay, well, like I said, I'm Bailey Berlanti, VP of Business Development here at ServeVita. We are doing our first of our fall 2025 lineup of webinars today. This topic today is going to be CentralCommand 7.77. So we've got a new release that came out back in June that we haven't had a chance to unpackage quite yet with you guys. So we're excited to do that today. And then, of course, at the end of Michael covering that topic, we'll do a time of questions and answers. So just some housekeeping announcements. This webinar is being recorded. Everybody is muted with cameras off, so you can just sit back, watch, enjoy. Please use the chat or the Q&A feature to be able to ask your questions so that we can answer them. Again, I'll make sure that we get those covered by the end of the webinar. And if there's anything we have to take offline, we'll make sure to follow up with you guys as well. Any questions about the recording? We're going to be having that sent out at the end of the webinar. So once the recording has rendered from a good hour-long conversation, if you're registered, you should be able to receive a replay link to be able to watch it. And then also by basically the end of today, I should have a copy uploaded onto the ServeVita YouTube page, which is also where you can find all of our past webinars that we've done and continue to rewatch, replay, share those with your colleagues and coworkers, and just dive into all the good content about CentralCommand. As far as upcoming webinars, we have 2 more lined up for us so far. The next one in September is going to be validation rules training, so covering how to create validation rules, how to manage those, and how they can be of use to you guys and your organizations. And then in October, for spooky season, we're handling the kind of scary topic of exchanges with MCOs and residual values and how to handle those haunting the CentralCommand systems and all those fun times that we have. I'm trying to discuss how to track those and make sure that they're accounted for within the reconciliation processes. So hopefully those are 2 that you're looking forward to, in the same links that you were sent out in the newsletter to register for this webinar. You should be able to register for those. And likewise, we'll continue to send out emails periodically to make sure that you have the links to register and get those on your calendar. So with that said, I'm going to pass it over to Michael Guiette, Director Product Management Extraordinaire, to cover CentralCommand 7.77.
Thank you, Bailey. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this late summer, early fall edition of the CentralCommand monthly webinars. We're going to be going through our 7.7 environments today and talk about new features that have been added to the web and enhancements that have been made to the application. There are going to be a couple of documents that we can provide to you if you request them. The release notes are always good, but you know, the release notes can be detailed and technical. So we have prepared a summary document that will go through all of the releases from update version milestone 7, which is what Unit 4 Business World is on. As much on the web as we can. We are seeing customers who are upgrading to our later releases, and they're seeing things on the web a lot of times for the first time. But we want to make sure that you're familiar with this application and that it is comparable to what you can do in the desktop application. It also allows us to be able to help your IT teams, help your environment teams, where instead of having to have a lot of remote desktop applications and shares, or where you have to log into another server to get to CentralCommand, by using the web application, you can, as long as you're on your network, a lot of companies use a VPN so that you can get to your intranet or to your OneDrive folder in the network, in the environment. You want to be able to get to the CentralCommand web that same way without having to have a lot of software loaded on your on your local desktop. So it does give you that ability to get to the information to Central Command through the internet without having to do your multiple jumps through different types of environments. So with that, what we are going to focus on today are some of the enhancements that we have for Central Command in the release 7.7. Now, the biggest one, the one I'm happiest about, is the enhancement to the speed of the web environment and being able to look at transactions within Central Command. I'm going to go in and I'm going to start with the transaction inquiry print invoice screen. This is where we go in to find transactions. I'm going to go in and I'm going to say, okay, this is my demo database. So I'm just going to go in and I'm going to say, okay, show me everything that, I have in my database. I'm just going to do January 1st, 22. And so it literally is going to come back and it's going to pull up transactions between the date ranges that I've chosen here. Again, you can use the filters on this screen to look for specific items. If I want to look for only transactions with car bookings, for example, and I click load, that's going to give me only those transactions that have a car booking on them. Same thing with hotel. If I want to find something with hotel, these filters that have been added or as part of the enhancements to the web application and to the desktop. Again, this screen is available in the desktop as well. And it's funny, I'm going to say that I had a question come up from a customer this last week, and they said, well, we're looking at a screen in Central Command, and we're not really confident that it's the same screen as that's on the web. And I want to assure you that the reason why we are changing the screens, and we're publishing both in the desktop application and the web, is so that your users can get used to seeing the exact same thing in both places. So if I went to the transaction inquiry print invoice in the travel desktop, it's going to look exactly the same as it does in the web. So that's just be aware that synchronization between the two environments is happening with the Unit 4 development team. They're doing a really great job about that. So one of the things that we have experienced is when you go into a transaction and you click on this zoom button, that in the past, this zoom button has been a little slower. A lot of times a lot slower. And this is whether you're looking at this within the application on the web or in the desktop. If you're looking at the new screen, what the Unit 4 development team has done has increased the speed by limiting some of the type ahead functionality. When I say type ahead functionality, I mean that this transaction number here. So if I go back to my desktop and I go into the ticket vendor screen, if I come to this screen now and I hit my space bar, it doesn't automatically search for the last 50 transactions. It's not going to allow me to put in a PNR locator to do a search on this screen. If I'm looking for the transaction number field, I have to put a transaction number in there. The reason behind that is because we found that with using the type ahead on this screen and travel agencies having so many transactions, it was taking a long time to do that search. So by removing that search, it allowed us to speed up the screen. Now, again, the first way that we can look for data very quickly is go into the transaction inquiry, print invoice screen, and pull it up through there. Another way that we can look up something is by using the transaction inquiry. This is like a search screen, but it's a fixed search screen. You don't have the ability to add or remove fields from this. So if I'm looking for something specific, if I want to look for a specific date, 1/15/22 to 01/15/22, my demo data, right? So if I search for that information, see this line that was blinking there? It tells me instead of having the circle spinning, it's telling me that screen was working. So from here, I could copy this transaction number, bring it back over to the transaction screen here, paste it, and then tab off of it. Again, it's instantaneous. It gives me the information for that screen immediately. So it does populate this screen much more quickly than in the past. So that to me is probably the second biggest enhancement for the version 7.7. So I wanted to point that out. The other place that the speed enhancement has been added is in the ArcBSP. If you go into the adjustment screen, if you start to look up adjustments, again, this does not have the, oh, it does still have the type. I probably, this actually is one of those things where I thought the type ahead, maybe I haven't enabled it here, but that type ahead should have been removed here because, again, adjustments, if an agency has a lot of adjustments in their system, this screen has taken a little while to be able to load as well. So those are the two main places where the speed has been enhanced. Now, the other piece of major functionality that's been added to the 7.7 release concerns the commission reconciliation. We have been able to do the import and reconcile of the, using the import and reconcile, we could load a file into CentralCommand, your Onyx file, your Pegasus file, your Paymode file. Those imports you could do within the web application before. What's new is the checks reconcile, apply, unapply, and the commission agent claims. So if we go into the apply, unapply, and I search for a file that's been uploaded, so now I have the same screen as you do in the desktop application that allows you to come in here, see the upload file, be able to go to the check, see, and be able to add your check information here, just like you do in the desktop. You can go to the details. Details allows us to do that matching so we can see if we have any unmatched transactions, we could go start to look for that. We can do our matching here, so we can pull that arrival departure information. If I say, okay, I'm going to look for 01/01/22 to 01/31/22, and I want to search for this information. Oh, it's going to ask me to search for what I'm looking for here is I'm looking for the one I have the $35 balance on. So when I select this row, now I can search. Yeah, it's telling me that there are a number of rows there that would be available. And July. So let's do this. So I'm looking for the arrival date. Oh, sorry. I did. It's asking me if I want to modify my search. And I keep saying yes. I don't want to modify my search. I'm sorry. So I keep hitting the wrong button. And so when this happens, it does allow me, then you can see this black line here that's blinking. It tells me it's thinking, it's searching for those hotel bookings in that date range with the arrival date of January 1st to December 31st. So it's searching for that information. It'll come back, it'll populate it, it will allow me to match a commission amount to the booking that it finds. So sorry, I kept hitting the wrong button, so I've got a larger date range that it's searching for. So in that case, this was one of the challenges that we had seen where customers wanted to have this screen on the web before they went to implement the web portal. So that was one of the things that is part of the update. Now there have been, again, if we look at, while I'm waiting for this, I'm going to pull up. This is the release notes. There are additional things that are included in this upgrade. So it is always important to go in and look at the release notes, define, look at the things that are included in the web. What are the enhancements to the web only? What are enhancements to the desktop or the desktop only? So again, we also had some functionality enhancements that are happening behind the scenes. When I say behind the scenes, what I mean is that when you go into a screen and you pull something up, being able to go in and search for things like, if I go into the here, if I look at the ACT extensions, what that means is if we pull up a financial transaction, we have the ability to zoom from the financial transaction and open the travel transaction screen on the web the same way as we do in the desktop application. Now, the other point I do want to point out is if you turn on in the desktop the ability to zoom to the new transaction screen, it'll go all of whenever you click on the zoom, and I'll go over there and I'll show you this in a minute, but when you zoom to the travel transaction, it'll take you to the new transaction screen. So those are some of the important features that we have added. Now in this case, you can see that here I've got my commission row highlighted. I'm just going to select this first line here. Notice that by selecting that first line, the $35 from this, it does apply it to that commission, or takes it from that commission row. It applies it, so there is now a zero balance here, and it puts the match level number 99 in place. So those are the things, one of the biggest things for us that we had customers were waiting to upgrade and get to the web client or the web portal, was the ability to be able to do everything they can do in the desktop today. And that was probably one of the last pieces that we wanted to make sure that was there. I'm going to go ahead and close out of this because I do want to jump over to the desktop application. Just let me see here. So when I go into the desktop application, this is, so one of the enhancements, this is the 7.7 environment again, and I'm in the travel transactions. If I go into my transactions and I go into the transaction inquiry, one of the things that had been missing from this application is when we search for data, if I had a transaction on my transaction inquiry screen and I double click on that row, what was happening is it would take us to the old transaction screen. And so one of the workarounds that I had talked to a few customers about that wanted to use the new transaction screen was we would take that transaction inquiry, we would put a link here at the top of the screen. What you would have to do was you would have to select the transaction ID and click that link rather than double clicking on the row like you do today. So this is one of the features that has been enhanced, is that in the system parameters for travel, if you go in here and there is a zoom parameter, zoom to TXB21 screen. Now this had been turned on when, if you had used the view error messages screen and you had this parameter turned on, it would take you to the new transaction screen instead of the old transaction screen in the view or from the view error messages screen, right? You had a zoom button there and it would take you to the new screen. It did not work on the transaction inquiry. The enhancement here is that when you have this parameter on, it takes you, when you double click on that row, it takes you to the new transaction screen. This is I mean, if you're coming from something before milestone 7.75, this screen, the enhancements that they've made to this screen, one, it allows you to easily transition from the old transaction screen to the new transaction screen because it looks almost exactly the same. The biggest thing that you won't see here is out here on the right, you don't see that manual exchange transaction or that manual exchange tab. The reason why is because of the enhancement to the invoice items. So when you have an exchange, for example, the enhancement on this screen is that you would have a column here for the original ticket information, a column for the new ticket information, and a column for the exchange amounts or the add collect, the even exchange, or the credit. Now, Bailey did mention one of our upcoming webinars is going to be about how do we manage exchanges with refunds that have an MCO, a residual MCO associated with them. So we're gonna talk about that in a future release, but I just wanted to say that because of this new Zoom, the update to the Zoom parameter, it allows you now to start to transition and start using that new functionality a lot sooner, because with this, it allows you to get to this new transaction screen much more quickly. And notice how much faster it is when you're opening this transaction screen. So it really does help us, and it works the same way from a browser. So if I go into my transaction inquiry and I go into a browser that we've got open, if I search for the information in the browser, it does the same thing. It allows me to zoom from that browser to the new transaction screen. So essentially, there's a little bit of training that goes along with this, but it allows our people to immediately be, I don't want to say the word forced, but encouraged to get used to the new screens. Okay, so that's the other thing. Now, the final thing I really want to stress about someone who's thinking about upgrading, making sure that we're upgrading to the latest version. I know that we've got some customers who have been testing versions, newer versions than they're on today, but they're not testing the 7.7 version. And from personal experience, I have found that this speed enhancement in the 7.7 environment is going to make your user conversion to a new environment, a new version of CentralCommand, easier. It's going to reduce the amount of time you spend with day-to-day users who are going to tell you this screen is too slow, we cannot use it. Okay, so be aware of that. I want to encourage you, if you're in the middle of an upgrade right now, if you're thinking about an upgrade right now, 7.7 will reduce your headaches after your upgrade. I promise you that. Okay, now the last thing I want to spend a little bit of time on with regards to upgrades. We have had customers that when they're doing an upgrade, forget to come into system administration, users and access. You can do either menu-based or role-based, depending on how you're used to using the functionality. If you come into the role user-based, and in my case, I'm part of the CentralCommand role in my environment. If I come into the CentralCommand screen, the CentralCommand module, if I look at the transactions folder, you'll notice that you still do have the old screen available to you here, okay? You have the new screen available to you here. Because of the difference in the tabs within these two screens, you want to make sure your upgrade team needs to make sure that they are comparing the permissions and setting the permissions with regards to the tabs on the screens, being able to get to the proper information that your users need to have. So if you haven't used the new transaction screen yet, just upgrading does not turn that functionality on for them. You want to make sure that you're coming in and saying, okay, what do my current users who are looking at the old ticket vendor screen have access to? Let's make sure that they have the same access all the way down to the invoice items and the tabs underneath the invoice items. Make sure that you give them the permissions that they need to be able to use this functionality. It's going to be in your benefit to be able to produce a very smooth transition for them. Okay? So I know I'm preaching. I'm sorry. It's just I want to help you do this. I want to help you reduce the stress on your operations team and your headaches on your help desk, because they're going to get the questions. All right. So that is, it's imperative to come in and look at the roles and the permissions that they have access to. If you're using the menu-based access. Now, menu-based access, I'm starting to like it a little bit more. I had always used the role user-based access in the past. Menu-based access, I'm starting to get used to it. It allows me to see at a glance what roles have access to the old transaction screen versus the new transaction screen. So it's very easy to be able to start to control and make sure that, if all of my travel users are part of a same role, do they have that same functionality? Do they have a view only role about that functionality? Another thing that's come up recently, I've talked to a few customers now that the web portal is the again, I can't stress the speed of that new transaction screen. But now that that speed is there and they want to start to give this web portal access to users outside of the normal back office accounting team, independent consultants, they want to be able to go in and look at their own transactions. It gives us that ability to set view only rights, read only rights to those screens, so that if you got a role for independent consultants and you give them a login and we're using data control that populates the screen so they can only see their own information. It's all connected here. It's making sure that anytime we do an upgrade, especially when there's new functionality related to either modules or screens within that functionality, it's important to make sure that we're looking at the user role and giving them the proper access that they need to be able to get in and do those things. All right. So I've talked for about 35 minutes, but I wanted to open this up a little early, and answer any questions where you might have questions right now. So, Bailey, do we have any questions that are in the chat?
Yep. On the adjustments page that you were doing the type ahead for, and we have a question of, is it the original ticket number field instead of the ticket number, transaction number field that you were using?
It's a transaction number field I was using, right? So here I was looking at that. These fields, so if I come in here to this screen and I hit my space bar, right? Didn't it? Okay, so if I go in here, this original ticket screen is not a type ahead, okay? Because these fields are what we would either import from if you've got to download from the memo manager or the BSP debit memos page, right? It's not a type ahead. It's not going to go look up an original ticket number for you, right? You should have that original ticket number, even though down here you can zoom to that original ticket from that screen. That's not a type ahead that's going to be able, it's not going to autofill it for you. Okay.
Okay. So that's the one question that we have in the chat or the Q&A. So if you've got a question, feel free to type it in now. But Michael, one thing that I think I just had a question off of, and maybe you had covered it and I had just missed it. But when you were talking about the zoom to the TXB21 screen parameter, is that already set up when the system gets upgraded, or is that something that a user needs to go in and fix once their tech team tells them that they're on 7.77?
Great question. If you are, it's not something that's delivered with the upgrade. CentralCommand upgrades are not going to change any system parameters for you. Okay, all of those system parameters have been configured based on, like, if you were a new customer and we were implementing CentralCommand for you, we would have system parameters that have been set in the template database that we're using to install your application. Anything where you have system parameters set within the system, an upgrade will not modify them. It will not change them. So you do need to go in and check that to make sure that that has been turned on. Which leads me to another question here, or another thought, if you will. When I click on System Parameters Travel, I have seen some environments, customer environments in the web, where if we click on that and we get an error on this screen, okay? The reason why you might see that error is in this list of system parameters. At some point in the past, when Unit 4 was implementing, back when I was with Unit 4 and part of the implementation team, a system parameter was created by someone and they had a comma in it, okay? Which isn't a character that's a valid character when you're trying to load the screen on the web. If you see that, go into the system parameters on the desktop application, look for that parameter on the web. It may be something that needs to be deleted from the database because one, it's not valid, and two, it will affect and throw an error on this screen when you try to load it. So just something I'm aware of, you know, kind of personal experience, but don't be really concerned if you get to this and you get that error. It says, you know, please check with your system administrator. Your system administrator, as we help them with an upgrade, it's one of those things that we're aware of, and we look for to help you while you're doing your upgrade. Okay. All right. So, just trying to think. Is there anything else that I want to really focus on inside of this 7.7 upgrade? You know,
So far,
again,
everything that you've said has been so perfectly received and well explained that there's no questions. Or
you
people
know
are
what?
just speechless that like the check, apply, unapply has been moved into the web, and they're still shocked on that one.
Yeah, I'm thinking overwhelmed might be more the answer there, right? So now I'm in here, Carrie, I know you're looking at this going, okay, how does this help me? Right? So are there, I hate to call people out on the call. No, I don't. I love doing that. So when I look at this and I say, okay, who are the people here on the call that have asked us questions about this, right? Where can we go to help you, one, convince your organization to upgrade, and then two, if you're already thinking about the upgrade, saying it's in our best interest to go to 7.7, right? So that's kind of where we are today. Um, you know, I think that gosh, I got to tell you, this for me, when I look at the 7.7 upgrade, and I do have a couple of the Unit 4 people here on the call with us today, I want to say thanks, because this is one of those upgrades that I think our customers are going to be happy with. It's going to benefit them in a big way. So that's where I am today.
Awesome. Well,
Really, no other
go ahead.
chats.
No other questions. Of course, if anyone thinks of any questions when we've logged off, the recording's been sent out, you know how to find probably Michael and also myself. Like I said, we'll get the recording out to you. And then as Michael showed, the release notes and the upgrade packages are all available to you in community for you. So you're able to go there and actually dive in, and we encourage you to still dive into the release notes. I know it's not the most exciting and thrilling reading unless you're really excited about the new release like Michael is, but there's a lot of really helpful information in there to understand what's been added and what the changes are. We again really encourage you guys to test when you're upgrading, just with those changes to those processes, and really be able to take advantage. And if you ever need help with your upgrade, with the testing or with training on how to use some of these features more specifically to your organization, or making sure it's configured correctly, we here at ServeVita are always ready, able, and willing to help. So Thanks for being on the web. Oh, go ahead, Michael.
I have one more thing. Okay, so by a show of hands on the meeting, how many of you have had your organization upgrade to version 7.5 or higher? Deanna, you're funny. Okay. Okay. How many? Okay, thank you very much for that. How many are on 7.3 or higher, if you're aware of that? Well, okay. Okay. So that just tells me that there are things that you're missing in your environments, and there are things that have been enhanced and made better. So please, reach out to Bailey and say, hey, we want more information. Let us get you not only the summary document of the release notes of 7.3 to 7.7. The summary will help you, but the release notes, we know that customers have questions and challenges every day. So please let us help you. Reach out to Bailey. Let us help you get some information about the challenges that you're having, so that we can make life better.
Yep.
All right.
We do have one more question in the chat that popped up. Will 7.77 accommodate multiple forms of payment or the new ARC boss file?
Not at this moment. You asked about 7.7 specifically. No, it will not. And the reason why is because we have to get information from both ARC. Yes, they provided us with a schema. We're waiting for them to give us a sample of the information that's coming from ARC for the JSON IAR file, right? So we've asked them for a sample of the JSON file so that we can see what they're going to produce. They've given us a schema, so we're looking at the schema today. So that's in progress. But the multiple forms of payment, I do want to point out that Central Command has handled multiple forms of payments for the BSP globally for a number of years. We've handled 2 forms of payment. For the ARC, what they have said is they're going to allow 3 forms of payment, but not yet. One of the GDSs has stepped up to allow the agencies to use multiple forms of payment in an ARC IATA number. They've also not provided any documentation to changes that are going to be in their interface messages, the IUR message, the error message, the TER, the MER message, right, from Travelport. So we don't have the information from the GDSs that we need to have that tells us how they're going to send us multiple forms of payment. So until we get that, we are still on hold with that, because the parsers can't be updated until the GDSs tell us how they're going to handle it. But yes, Central Command has been doing multiple forms of payment for a long time. Changing it from 2 to 3, I don't think is going to be a huge issue. It's really about the parsers and about how the GDSs are going to send us that information from the booking. All right. Good question. Thanks for asking it.
So, all right. Well, I'll let everyone have a couple more minutes back in their day. Like I said, thank you to the development team for making such a great new release. Thank you for Michael for unpacking it for us and helping us understand a little bit more of the functionality that's there. Thank you guys all for attending and listening and registering for this. And we will see you next month to talk about validation rules, and in October to talk about exchanges with MCOs and residual values.
Thank you, everyone.